to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, I'm Rob. That's how I talk about them safeties.
It's a safe place to talk about safeties. Oh, yes, that's what we got here. So let's dive on in to those New York football Giants safeties here. You can't talk about the safeties this year without talking about one of the most exciting pickups we had in the draft here. And that's Tyler Nubin. Tyler Nubin, second round pick this past year out of Minnesota. Last year, 12 games, 53 tackles, 5 interceptions, 14 passes deflected, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble, and 89.2 PFF. He's just 22 years old, turns 23 here coming up in June. 6'2", 210 pounds, prototypical size, highly productive in college. And one of the things I love about this guy here, ball hawk. 5 interceptions there, guys. You know, we talked last episode about Alex Johnson from UCLA that we got, who led the Pac-12 interceptions after not having a single interception for his first 3 seasons. Goes in his 4th year in the league, has 5 and leads the Pac-12. Tyler Nubin's done his whole career.
But he's also a noob to the NFL.
Nubin. Nubin.
Nubin.
When you listen to Joe Shane talk about it, one of the things he brings up in a consistent point there, and it's, you know, at least from the look of what I've looked at there, and Joe Shane's done a lot more research on this stuff than I have, obviously, that tends to translate to the NFL when you have a safety who gets interceptions often in college. And again, not talking about the one and done like Johnson. I'm talking about consistently been a ball hawk throughout his collegiate career. That's one thing I would love, guys. Listen, you want to improve the offense, you put them in the right position to score. Interceptions, turnovers, that puts them in the position to score. This could be a slam dunk pick at that point there. I'm pretty excited to see what he can do. He was my favorite safety in this draft, and I'm kind of shocked he dropped to us, to be honest with you guys.
Listen, it's kind of like a Hyatt thing. So, I mean, we're shocked that we got him in the 3rd round, two drafts ago. But let's see. I mean, he could be definitely that dude that could be the stud back there.
The difference with him and Hyatt, though, is Hyatt was like the 10th wide receiver drafted. Nubin was the top safety draft, unless you want to count Cooper DeJean. You know, there's the whole thing about him at that point there, whether you want to call him a safety or a corner there. I can't remember which one of those two went first, but he was kind of drafted as a DB. I'm talking a pure safety. Tyler Nubin was the best on the board, first one taken off the board. It wasn't like he dropped because 10, 12 guys went before him like Hyatt a couple of years ago. He went where people thought he might. That was kind of the latter end to where people thought he would go. And the best safety in the draft literally fell into our lap when we had to replace a top safety that we lost in free agency, Xavier McKinney. Dream scenario. It's dream scenario. It really is, guys. Like you could not have written that script better for the Giants that we go ahead and get in the 2nd round, because let's be honest, we weren't drafting a safety at number 6 overall, nor should we have. Yeah. But to go, okay, we got our top flight player at number 6 here, Malik Neighbors, who people are already calling like one of the top 15 wide receivers in the draft, in the NFL, which to me is a little crazy before he catches one ball. But you get that kind of player. First off, you go into the 2nd round where you start looking at that safety position. You come up to draft, and the best goddamn safety in this draft is still available for you. When you just lost out on having one of the best safeties in the NFL. Like, that's, again, dream scenario, guys. Like, I still can't believe that we lucked out into that kind of pick. He's going to be a stud. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be a stud.
Yeah, definitely on paper, a very good draft for us in the first half.
Yeah. the questions that you got here with him. First off, can he adequately replace Xavier McKinney?
Well, that's a little unfair to ask. A freshman coming in. Hey,
that was our next question. Our next question was if it's fair to ask that. Way to dive into question number 2 before you.
Well, you kind of have to ask that question at the same time.
I don't. Yeah, no, I'm just messing with you. You're not wrong at all.
The best part is I wasn't even looking at the notes.
But no, I mean you're not wrong in that question. Is it fair to even hope for that? I mean, you're replacing again Xavier McKinney. I'm not saying he's a top 2, top 3 safety in the league, but he's within the top 5 to top 10.
He was 4 last year. That
depends on who you rank with at that point. There, I mean, there's PFF rankings, there's Pro Bowl rankings, there's all so many different rankings you could look at. In the end, it's all personal preference, and sometimes what best fits your scheme, even at that point there. But
touche.
You're still talking. I would put him somewhere between top 5 to top 10. I'm not saying he's number 10, but I'm saying he's in that latter half of that top 10, if that makes sense.
I got you.
And it's not fair.
Top 5.
It's not fair to put that on or expect a rookie to do that. So as much as I'm excited about the player, I don't think you can expect him to be the next Xavier McKinney. And to a certain degree, you shouldn't expect anybody to be the next anybody. I mean, he's a different player. He plays a different style. He's not Xavier McKinney 2.0. But he could be better in some ways, and he could be worse in other ways, and that's what you kind of hope for. A guy who is a similar playing caliber, but not a similar player, if that makes sense.
It does, and like you said already, like they just have different styles of play. Which, how are you going to compare the 2 different styles of play? Say who's better at doing what?
I like to compare the Crane style to the Drunken Master style. That's personally what I.
That's why I always went with Bryce in that Mortal Kombat game.
Mortal Kombat. That guy probably got paid so much money for saying that. But I mean, again, I think we shouldn't expect him to be an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler or anything like that. I think what we should just expect is the rookie year. You can have high expectations, but I'm not saying like let's lower the expectations down. Just don't embarrass us. No, like that's not what I'm saying. Be above average. If you could be an above average safety your first year in this league, when you're still learning stuff at that point, because that's the next question we had. Is I'm getting into that one out of accidentally this time.
Jump the gun.
Will there be a learning curve? I mean, there's going to be a learning curve. You're a rookie. Like corner, we talk about all the time. Corner, edge. And, probably the 2 hardest positions on defense to just step into the NFL. But no one talks about safety. Safety is also a pretty difficult position because you still have the nuances that the corners have as far as figuring out how to cover guys, figuring out the different moves at that point, because the guys who were fast tight ends in college or running backs in college, they're now average. The guys who were average are now slow. That's the way it works when you go up that next level. Like there's still that learning curve for these guys as well, as far as learning the playbooks are much more complicated. There's so much to it. There really is. And you got to think safety is like, I call it like a hybrid between corner and linebacker.
That's a fair assessment. I was going to say, because you have to be able to know how to play both positions, depending on the blitz you're going to play into, depending on what kind of zone coverage you're going to be doing. There's a lot to ask from your safeties that have to be a utility knife.
Huge. I mean, you figure a linebacker, you got to figure out you got to stop the run, you got to rush the passer, and you got to cover guys. There's the 3 things you're going to do on 3 different possible circumstances, basically. Granted, I'm simplifying, waiting for somebody to go, well, there's also this. I get it. I'm just simplifying it right now, okay?
Yeah.
But you throw now into safety into the mix. You still have all that stuff. Plus, you have to cover like a corner at times. Plus, you have to be the center fielder at times at that point there. There's every single possible thing you could do on the football field, you have to know how to do as a safety. There's definitely that learning curve. No one talks about that enough, but there definitely is, guys. And it's not fair to expect him to be an amazing player off the bat. It's not impossible. Happens every year that somebody at a position becomes like a top flight player right off the bat. And it's usually not the guy you expect. Every single season, pretty much, there's that guy you don't expect to be this top flight guy right off the bat. CJ Stroud last year is a perfect example. Granted, quarterback, safety, I get it. Two different complete pictures at that point there. But you're still talking about a guy who excelled right off the bat.
Yes. So, I mean, completely different picture, exactly what you said. But once again, it's a position that's a multifaceted like position. Like you have to be able to like CJ Stroud run the ball sometimes. Definitely has to throw the ball. Sometimes has to know when to hold him, sometimes when to throw him. Or to when to fold him.
You know, I mean, but that's what it is. I mean, you're looking at, you know, guys that just Sauce Gardner's classic example. Sauce Gardner came in and just lit this NFL up at that point there. You know, he became a top flight, you know, well, I'm saying, but he's a corner. That doesn't affect him as much. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, there's guys every year that come in and light it up. So I'm not saying you can't expect it as a possibility, but you can't expect it as a probability. There's a difference. There is a difference. So, you know, I expect at least an above average year out of him. And if he's a great player off the bat, it won't shock me. But I'm not going to expect that. That's not fair.
No, not at all.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the guy who's going to be probably taking him under his wing to a certain degree here, because Tyler Nubin's going to need some help there. And while he's not a full-out veteran at this point, where he's like a 15-year vet in the league, Jason Pinnock is probably the guy who's probably going to take Tyler Nubin under his wing there to a certain degree, because they're going to be starting on the field together most of the time there. Talk about a guy that the Jets lost that they wish they probably could have taken back. You know, like that was a really bad move when they dropped him. And remember, you and I were pretty excited when we picked him up as well, because he looked really good. Again, I know it's preseason, but he looked really good in the Jets preseason before they dropped him that year. You know, he was a 5th round pick from the out of Pittsburgh for the Jets back in 21. Last year with us, 16 games, all 16 were starts, 85 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 6 passes deflected, 2 sacks, 4 QB hits, 6 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, a 67.7 PFF grade. 24 years old too. He's still really, really young, guys. I mean, like, that's one of those things that you don't necessarily talk about with a guy who was cheap like that and came in and they're like, oh, he's cheap. They kind of you focus on the money part, but he's still young too, guys. He's still young. 6 foot even, 205 pounds. Now, to give you an idea real quick, the guy he replaced, because this is who he's going to get compared to by some people, is Julian Love, obviously, with the Seahawks. I'm not going to go over the full, stats for every single line for what Julian Love did, but a 72.8 PFF grade down to a 67.7. It's a difference, but it's not a massive difference, guys.
No.
I think he did a very good job replacing Julian Love. Keep in mind, Julian Love also had a shnikey little more talent around him in Seattle. That does help you with those gradings at that point there. It makes your job easier. Does. I would venture to tell you that you could flip-flop either one of them, and their PFF grades would all probably flip-flop with them at that point there.
You can make that argument.
Like I said, I'm not saying it's 100%, but it wouldn't shock me at all. I'll put it that way. Now he goes into his second season as a full-time starter. There's always that little bit of nervousness, a little bit of, little butterflies in the stomach there, so to speak, the first year as a starter. Because you get a little nervous. You've been a backup for a couple of years. Now you're front and center. A lot is expected of you. And he did it adequately. He really did, I think. And I'm curious to see where he improves now as a second-year starter. When you start getting a little more comfortable with the role, you kind of go in there. Now you're kind of the veteran of the 2 starting safeties, like as I mentioned a moment ago there. I'm curious if he improves. I'm curious where he goes. Where does he take it from here? Because I don't think we've seen the best that we're going to see of Jason Pinnock yet. I really don't.
No, not at all. I mean, he was the secondary to McKinney last year, obviously.
Secondary in the secondary.
Yes, secondary in the secondary. There. He's also got different coaching around this year. There's a lot of different talent around him this year. Like, there's I mean, there's definitely room for him to degress, which I don't expect from him. Like, I just see him just getting better. And that's not being a biased Giants fan. That's just this guy's a young guy that's played pretty well in the opportunities he was given. Yeah. And he's made improvements every year, game after game.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to his 4th season, his 2nd as a starter. And again, he's still 24. The guys, there are people that were drafted this year older than him.
Yeah.
I hate to bring that up. I feel like I bring it up every episode, but it's true for some of these guys that have been for a couple of years now, and they're still young. They're still young. Like, he's still, again, 24 years old. Guys, he just started drinking 3 years ago, legally at least.
Legally. Yeah.
Legally at least. Yeah. Just had to add that part of it there. I mean, I think it's safe to say that, again, 2nd year starting, 24 years old, he's probably not done growing into, his peak at that point there. I think the one knock you could have on him, and it's kind of the second question we have on him here, is it fair? Maybe it's just me who thinks this way, but correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, because I put this note here. We didn't talk about this one. I'm curious what you think on it. I said, is it fair to call him a jack of all trades, but a master of none? Because I feel like he's a guy who does a lot of things average to above average. But there's nothing I look at and go, Jason Pinnock excels at blank. No one can blank like Jason Pinnock. And that's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's better than
fill that blank in with average.
Yeah, like it's better than someone who sucks. And I've always said on the show, and I'll repeat it again, you can't have a star at every position. That's ridiculous to expect that. He's a good starter. It's just that's the one thing where I go, like, I look at a player and I like to see, like we talked about, Tyler Nubin, who's a ball hawk in college. We went over that initially. I'll use that as an example. There's not one thing at Jason Pinnock that I'm like, Jason Pinnock, he just really great at blank. There isn't. He's just really good all around.
Yes, that's fair. You could say he's a really good lover.
I wouldn't know. Like, where did that come from? Wow. He's a really good lover. Rob, is there breaking news that we have to give here?
Breaking news. TMZ just called.
Breaking news we heard here on Two Giant Goofballs. Where did that even come from?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I don't know. You'd have to ask his significant other. I don't even know if he's married or not. He's 24. He shouldn't be. Play the field, enjoy life, guys. Once you're older, then settle down. Mike's not listening right now. Now, listen, 24. Most people at 24 aren't looking to get married and settle down yet. Have your fun, enjoy it.
Usually not.
But here's the last question we have as we awkwardly get out of that conversation. Is he the long-term answer at this position? The long-term pause as you think about it now.
Listen, I don't think anyone's guaranteed. There's not a lot of people guaranteed a long-term position in the NFL. A lot of things could happen. So to say to a guy that we just said that he's not a stud anywhere, but he's damn average everywhere.
He's solid.
Yeah.
I'll say that when I said damn average. It sounds better. He's solid.
Yeah. Maybe you find a guy free agent. Maybe you find a guy in the draft who excels at just one thing a little bit better that might be more utilized in the way our defense is going to be set up. Then you might have to change. Like I don't want to say without a doubt he's a long-term answer, but like currently, like I do think he's our short long-term answer.
Short long-term answer.
That makes sense. Like
way to completely avoid the question. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, listen, it's not like he's the number one safety in the league. He wasn't anywhere close to there.
No, that'd be crazy.
If you say something like that, then yeah. But you'd argue that he is the long-term answer just because the price you're probably going to pay for him long-term and how well he does play the position.
Well, that's part of the equation with him. This is his last year under contract. He's got a $3 million hit this year, and then he's a free agent next year. If he plays very well, there's going to be a market for him. If he plays like he did last year, which is still well, he's going to be probably a guy who's going to get paid $6-7 million, kind of like what the Julian Love contract was the year before, ironically enough, as we talked about him comparison-wise there. And listen, it all depends on what happens, how he plays and stuff like that, and how much money he wants and how much money the Giants have. So there's a lot of variables to it. I think he can be the long-term answer. I think he can be. It all depends on how those negotiations go, because I honestly think he's going to be better this year. And I think maybe instead of saying he's average at everything, we say he's slightly above average at everything.
Yeah.
Or he's above average at everything, but he's not great at it. And that's fine still. Like I said, again, you can have a stud at every position.
He's your friend, but you're not your best friend in the safety position.
Exactly. All right. Let's go into the newbie here.
Ooh.
The newbie who's an oldie. The guy who we signed, who's probably the oldest person on our entire roster, it feels like at times, minus the special teams, because we got some really old people on special teams. And I say that they're still younger than me. But the old guy we signed this offseason, Jalen Mills, a whole 30 years old. There's not a lot of 30-year-olds in this team here. Not a lot of 30-year-olds, that's for sure. 6 foot even, 200 pounds, 7th round draft pick of the Eagles from LSU, way, way, way back in 2016. We're talking like pre-COVID. This is like, was Obama president then? Is that what's going on? Is that far back we're going here? Like, we're going back. We're taking it back to years and years ago here, guys. Last year with the Patriots, 17 games, 8 starts, 45 tackles, 1 pass deflected, 1 forced fumble, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit, and a 59.1 PFF grade there. He's played overall in 106 games, started 83 of them, mostly really at corner. That's where he's played most of his career there. It's just getting to that time where Father Time starting to win just a little bit, and it's time to move to a safety position there. So I think the big question here is, I know, and I kind of feel weird like harping on someone's age when they're 30 years old, but like the TikTok video says 30s when you start to die. There's a video that that Britney Spears Hit Me Baby One More Time that did that, like 30s when you start to die. And it was like talking about the hurting backs and joints and all that stuff. We all got it. But the first question is really, how much does he have left in the tank there? And it's a valid question because he went from being a full-time starter to a part-time starter. He went from being mostly a corner to now being more of a safety issue there, like things are changing for him. He's growing hair in weird places and all that kind of stuff now. It's like he's not what he was when he was with the Eagles, for example, because he was a long-time Eagle at that point. The guy played corner for years. Most Giant fans are probably very familiar with him if they're over the age of 25, 20, It's like,
oh yeah,
we know him, but he's not the same player from when we knew him. And I think you're probably looking at a guy that probably has a couple of years left in the tank. I think he's still got some gas left there. It's just, how like when you're driving the car and you got like 30 miles left in the tank, but you got to take another trip, and you're like, I think I can make it.
And then you go 31 miles and you just quite didn't do it. That's probably in that Mills right now.
that's where he's at. Again, he's not the player he was, but he's still got the use. And look at all the players we talked about between last episode we did there talking about corners and this episode talking about safeties. They're all so young, guys. These are guys all like mostly like under 25. So having a guy that's got a lot of experience is not a bad thing. I like the signing. I like the move overall. I just curious what they plan to do with him, because I think he works best as like that guy you bring in nickel and dime packages at this point in his career. You kind of rest him up for the important stuff where having a veteran presence on the field helps. where a guy can go, I've seen this 10,000 times already. They haven't, but I have.
Yeah.
I know exactly where to go. That's the kind of spot I think is probably best for him.
100% is the mentor.
Yeah. But you can also turn around and say, does his age prevent him potentially from making this roster? Like, if you have a decision to make and you're like, okay, well, I'm kind of spoiled because we haven't talked about him yet, but let's talk about Javarius Owens for a brief second here. Let's say he does really good in camp. And you're like, Javarius Owens kind of did better than I expected in camp. He's kind of played at the same level of Jalen Mills. Well, one of them's 24 years old. One of them's 30 years old. Who do you think's going to get the nod?
I mean, with this young team, if we're going to go through it all, I'm going to have to say probably Mills.
But I can see it either direction. I can see it either way. Where they go, you know what? Mills is preventing Owens from developing.
I get that.
Or
at the same
Mills
time,
is helping them develop because he's a mentor.
I was about to say, are you going to Are you going to lack the development of one player or the rest of the roster?
And I think that depends on what kind of relationship Mills has with the rest of the squad.
Exactly. So,
and it's not just the safeties. I'm talking about the secondary as a whole, because he's going to be just as helpful with the corners as using the safeties.
Big time.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what happens, but he's a guy that I could see him having a role in this defense, or I could see him getting cut, and neither one would shock me. And if he gets cut, it's probably due to the age. Again, I hate to say it's 30. It's not really that old. We're joking around, but 30.
Listen,
hell, that was 12 years ago for me. God damn. I'm old. I'm the
old.
one who's old.
If
I was drafted in the NFL, I'd be drafted way back in like 03, 04, okay? I'm like Eli's age.
Damn, you're a dinosaur.
Seriously. I am. I'm so old. All right, let's get into our next player, who I didn't list as a potential guy that's a bubble guy here a minute ago, because I think he's pretty much a lock to make it. And he's a guy that seems to always not get a lot of playing time, but be a guy who always is in the right place at the right time. And that's Dane Belton. Yeah, I mean, the guy starts off his career being injured the first week of the 22 season. Goes in week 2, the very first play he does, he gets a fumble recovery off a kickoff. I mean, if that doesn't sum up his career right there. Doesn't get a lot of time, but seems to make an impact and make the right decisions when he gets the times. And it's just really weird, because you think a guy like that would get more playing time. He just doesn't get it. His play actually dropped. So his plays, 39% of the defensive snaps in 22 his rookie season. Just 26% last year. That's a decent drop there. Still just 23 years old, 6'1", 205 pounds, 4th round pick originally from back in 22 there from Iowa, known for their corn. Right? Isn't that what Iowa's known for? Corn, right? Think so? I don't know. Last year, 17 games. So he did play in all of the games, had 2 starts, 33 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 passes deflected, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 2 QB hits. 51.7 PFF grade. But think about what I said a minute ago, though. I should say a minute ago. I gave you guys a lot of stats and know pretty quick. Sorry, we go too slow. It becomes a 5-hour show. 26% of those defensive snaps he did. 2 interceptions. If he played like 75%, that's like 6 interceptions, guys.
Yeah, if we're good off those stats, yeah.
Like I'm saying, look at what he's done in the amount of snaps he's done, because 75% of the snaps is what you kind of expect a starter to do. Unless you're Xavier McKinney, then you play 100% snaps like you did last year, and then he's got 8 interceptions. If you just times what he did by 3 and give him 75%, 99 tackles, 6 interceptions, 6 passes deflected, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 6 QB hits, and 3 fumble recoveries.
It's pretty good safety over there.
That's a damn good stat line. So there's got to be something we're missing here that's going on as far as practices or just us having the lack of knowledge in the plays. Like he's got to be in the wrong place where he's not supposed to be during plays or something. There's got to be something going on behind the scenes. You'd have to be on the team, know the playbook to know. Because I look at those stats and I don't get it, the 26%. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting he would actually have 100 tackles and stuff like that. I get it. He's brought in an obviously heavy passing down situations at that point. It inflates the stats a little bit there. But he doesn't have a bad stat line for the number of plays he's in. So it's like, whose leg does he have to hump to get some more playing time? Like Brian from Family Guy would say.
Yeah. To go dry martini around here. Yeah.
Like, that's where I feel like looking at him, you know? And like I said, I don't know. I don't know. You got any insight in this, Rob? What do you think?
I have not been into MetLife in a year, so it's I have no clue.
I thought, didn't I ask you to bug the player locker room? What the hell?
Oh, I actually put cockroaches there.
Oh,
God,
okay.
Wrong bug.
Okay. I see ya.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, there's got to be something like that kind of thing at that point going on where he's not necessarily where he should be on plays or something along those lines at that point, because it just nothing else makes much sense at that point. Why wouldn't you give this guy some more time? You know, and the other thing you got to look at with this guy is what's his ceiling next? Now we're going to year 3. Let's be very frank and say that if it wasn't for the drafting of Tyler Nubin we talked about earlier on, I would have thought Dane Belton would get a chance to start. Like they went out of their way to make sure he didn't. I don't mean that like as a personal shot. Like the best safety available was there in the draft. They took him. But it's like, let's say hypothetically you're Joe Shane for a second, okay? You're Joe Shane.
What? I wish.
You went ahead and you lost Xavier McKinney in free agency. But you also know you got holes everywhere. If you had confidence in Dane Belton, would you be drafting in the second round a safety, or would you try to plug one of the holes? It makes me think that he saw safety as a whole.
He probably saw every position pretty much as a whole last year.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
The roster is one big hole.
And when you get the best player available
and defensive tackle,
and when you got an issue like that, and you get the best player available, you're probably going to take the best player available.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you were Joe Shane and you had confidence in Dane Belton that he could step up and be a starter, knowing all the issues you have with this roster, would you still take him?
I mean, I think at the position you have to as Joe Shane, but I hear what you're saying. Like if he,
let's bring in our guest, Joe Shane. No kidding.
Yeah. But Belton played 50% more snaps and showed a little bit more promise. No, you're not wrong. But for whatever reason, you're only getting the small sample size of them. And yes, you could take those stats and be like, look how great he could be. Or you could be like, right place, right time. And guess what happens with Nubin's? Right place, right time. And Joe Shane went, Nubin.
I said, it's a puzzling situation for Dane Belton, and it's got you, got to make you wonder, like, what's his ceiling? Like, to the Giants, and this is another thing, this just popped in my head. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking this, but maybe I'm not. We talked about Jason Pinnock having one more year before he's a free agent. Do we think maybe that they think he just needs one more season, Dane Belton, and that they want to start him next year maybe? Is that a possibility? We think he's a better replacement for Pinnock. We think he's better in that kind of position to let Nubin be the center field ball hawk at that point. Let him step up and be Jason Pinnock's replacement next year, potentially. Maybe that's the thought process.
Possible.
Maybe that's what it is. But like I said, the big thing that makes me think otherwise is the snap count dropping. Like I said, when you're going from 39% to 26%, you literally lost a third of your snaps. It's like if you were a bowl of Rice Krispies and you were just crackling pop.
What happened to snap?
Gone. Something happened. Gone. No more snap. No more. So.
That's terrible.
As Deb chimes in, and welcome back, Deb, by the way. I haven't seen you in a couple episodes. Good to see you. She says, do the Giants draft by best player or need? I always thought best player. They do typically, but I mean, I'll say this. I always hear that every draft talking about, do they take best player or do they take need? Every single...
You do a little bit of both.
Yeah, I was about to say, every single team is a combination. It's kind of like that sliding scale, and it's like, where do you go, for example? Like, let's say the Chiefs, for example. I'll use them. Like, if they were drafting early in the first round and the quarterback was on the board and they still had Patrick Mahomes, do you think they take him? Even if he's the best player? No, of course not. Let's say the Giants at pick 6 instead of Malik Neighbors, there was a stud nose tackle. We already got Dexter Lawrence. The need part of it definitely comes into it. You could even make the case of pretty much every single round, that kind of scenario. Like, okay, we have this guy. Do we get this guy as the best available? We have this big hole over here. Here's a guy that's just slightly worse, but he filled a need. That happens every single draft, and it happens with the Giants too. But they have in the past. I remember George Young was huge on drafting based on best player available. He was very big on BPA there. But like I said, I think there's not a single team or GM that 100% does it based on best player available, especially the earlier rounds. Maybe the later rounds, because you don't want to take a risk. You'd rather take somebody you think is a hit and a home run.
100%.
But in the earlier rounds, you're trying to fill holes with quality players. So, all right, let's get into... We have one more safety to go into. We talked about this guy just a little bit ago there as a bubble kind of guy there. And that's really what he is, if we're being honest. And that's Javarius Owens. 7th round pick last year out of Houston. And 24 years old now, 6 foot even, 200 pounds. Now, this is what's weird about these when you draft a player. We talked about that, I think, like every episode. We're talking about these players here. So Dane Belton, who's going into his 3rd year now, is younger than Javarius Owens, who's going into 2nd. It's just weird to me like that at that point when that kind of stuff happens. Anyway, last year, played in 3 games, not a single start, had 1 tackle, 1 fumble recovery, appeared in such little snaps that PFF didn't even give a grade. He spent most of the year on the practice squad. So, we don't really know fully well what to even think of the guy, except for the fact that obviously he didn't wow and go crazy in preseason, off-season workouts last year and stuff like that. But they liked him enough to hold on to him. So he's kind of like one of these guys, like, it's the project. Let's see what we can develop him into. But he's definitely got the athletic skills. Like, you heard about him a little bit last, OTAs, ironically. We're talking about OTAs, right now. We're in the middle of those right now. Last year, remember, his name kept popping up during the OTAs. And again, Giants writers like to pop up and make every single draft player, look a lot better than they actually are sometimes. But, you still have to make some kind of play to get noticed and written up about. You can't be like, he drank a good glass of water.
Yeah. He likes blue Gatorade.
Like, you still have to do something to get mentioned at that point there, like, blue Gatorade. Now I'm drinking. I heard a recipe on TikTok. I guess we get sidetracked here. It was they got a jar of lemonade. You pour about a quarter to a half of it out, depending on how strong you want to make the drink. You put in a packet of Kool-Aid Blue Raspberry, and you fill up the rest with vodka, shake it up, and supposedly it's amazing, by the way. But it looked just like blue Gatorade, so it made me think of it. I'm not saying it's good yet. I haven't tried it. Next family function, I will probably bring it along, which sounds weird to bring that to a family function. But listen, both my families, we drink here, both mine and yours and my wife's at that point there. We're all drinkers. So
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So it's okay. Anyway, the big thing is this year is Javarius Owens now in his 2nd year. You don't mind holding onto a player you just drafted for a little bit and put him on the practice squad, see what you can do to develop him, especially when they've got like Jerome Henderson that I trust. I know you trust a lot as well to develop these young guys. He's got a really great track record, making guys look like good players that maybe didn't look that good before they got there. Fabian Moreau is a classic example. We talked about him. The big thing is it gets to a time period where you don't mind holding on to a guy for a year, maybe a 2nd, but it's not a given. Definitely not a 3rd. Like eventually you're out Bachman there, and you got to go. Like, like you've already seen that you're just not that good, and you're not going to make it to where we need you to be, and you got to go. So it's an important year for Owens, that's for sure, to at least try to get, not necessarily be a full-time active roster player, but at least get in the field a whole lot more than 3 games and have 1 tackle on the season.
Get a PFF grade.
Yeah, like he's got to develop a little bit. So the question comes in to be, can he earn time on the field? And I think that we talked about it before. I really think Dane Belton's not the guy he's fighting for a roster spot. I think it's Jalen Mills. And we talked about it before, the age thing. It's a positive. It's a negative for Mills there at that point because he's a little older, but he's also a little bit more of a mentor and a veteran at that point. They're in a very young group. But Owens has that possibility to overtake him, I feel like, and take that spot. He's just got to play really well this offseason and this preseason. He's got to show it. He's got to outshine him.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like I said before, when we're talking about Mills, like I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, you're talking about us. It's his second year. He's got time to, I don't want to say develop because I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, like you want to bring a guy like Mills with the veteran leadership, and as long as he's jiving and mixing with these guys in the secondary, like
then you really gotta jump and jiving.
Like he can really get those guys grooving in the backfield. Like that might be more viable, if you will.
It's like a jump and jiving in my head now. Dan, that you're Brian Setzer in your orchestra.
But a guy like Mills in the backfield that gets a whole secondary moving or working right might be more important than taking a shot on the guy that you got in the 7th round that you don't know.
It very well might, which kind of answers the question that we had next year is he destined for the practice squad again? And I think he probably is. I do think Mills is probably going to get the edge over him at this point there, barring any injuries or any crazy rise by Owens or catastrophic drop by Mills, if that makes sense. But as far as what I think a ceiling for him is going to be in this is, I think this year the what we probably should think is, and I don't want to put this out there because I feel like I'm going to come off as the most negative Nancy ever at that point there. I'm going to be the Debbie Downer in this whole scenario here. But it's like, let's be honest, the Giants have a history, and it's not just of winning Super Bowls, it's about having injured players. And when that happens, he's going to get a chance to play. He's going to get a chance to go on the active roster at that point there. And I think that's his time to shine. I think he starts the season on the practice squad. And I think his best bet is when he gets the chance to get up to the big leagues there, so to speak, gets that call up. But he's just got to hit it out of the ballpark here, to use 2 different baseball analogies there. And I think once you get him up there and you get him in there, if he can show what he can do physically and have to translate to the field, he might not go back down.
You might be right. I mean, that's a lot of ifs, though.
I may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic
that you are looking for.
Turn off the lights. As Paul says, Giants all the way, baby. I don't know why, Paul, and I don't even know what your voice sounds like, obviously, but I read that and I'm thinking Dick Vitale. I really, that's where I'm going 100%. Giants all the way, baby. Like I can't do a good Dick.
Let's go.
Voice. I can't do a good Dick Vitale voice, but he's a legend. Every time I hear anybody talk sports, say the word baby, and I just go right to him automatically. Let's talk about the question here as we talk about the fact that, let's be honest, guys, we just finished this talking about the safeties here. We talked about 5 guys. That's it. That's not a lot of guys. So it bears the question as we block here. Oh no, I'm hitting buttons everywhere. What am I doing? Geez. I'm going crazy here. Should the Giants sign a safety in free agency there? And it's a legitimate question, I think, at this point here. But much like the other positions we've talked about, who are you going to sign, guys? Don't say Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But it's like
wrong 80 shirt I'm wearing.
10,000 gigawatts. But you look at the
21.1
guys out there, and it's like there's guys that you might be okay getting in, into the roster if, let's say, there's an injury, Mills has a huge drop off, or you don't have confidence in Belton or Owens to step up in that scenario. Like that's it's not a good thing in my eyes if we have to sign somebody.
No.
Because there's no one that great left. I mean, I look at who's available. You got Justin Simmons is the big name out there, 30 years old, had a 67.9 PFF grade last year with the Broncos. You got Eddie Jackson, 29 years old, 58.6 PFF grade with the Bears last year. Marcus May, 30, 57.6 PFF with the Saints last year. Micah Hyde, the oldest guy we're going to list here, 33 years old. And mostly because he's got that history from being for the Bills forever with Joe Shane and Brian Dable. But he's already said either I go back to the Bills to play this year, or I'm probably going to retire. That's what he has said publicly. Now, sometimes when he gets offered money, things do change your mind when you get offered money. Yeah. But 64.4 PFF grade were there with the Bills last year. Quandre Diggs, 31, 55.1 PFF with the Seahawks last year. And Jamal Adams, the former Jet, the former Seahawk there, 28 years old, 54.9 PFF grade with the Seahawks. So let's be honest. He's not really a safety. He's a linebacker. He's a little tiny linebacker. That's what he is. Again, none of these guys are that great. They're really not. Like, I look at this whole bit of, options, and I'm like, I think I'll take my chance on what we got. Again, barring an injury.
Yeah, barring an injury is a big key. Like, because who knows?
And even with an injury, I might say, you know what? Throw Dean Belton in. What the hell? Let's go for it. Like, really, at the end of these guys, going to be that much better than Dean Belton right now at this point in their careers. Or at least you give him a shot and you find out what you got in Dean Belton. And that helps you make your decision next year for what you have to do with Pinnock. Because if Dean Belton comes in and starts for a couple games and does great in case of an injury, well, now you feel more confident about letting Pinnock go and putting Dean Belton there next year. I just feel like getting one of these players would just totally stifle the growth of the young players. This year is the year of the youth for us, guys. We have a really young team here. Like, yeah, we are youth of a nation. Going a little POD style here. I feel like nobody knows what POD is anymore. Probably
they haven't been relevant in 20 years. So
listen, neither have I. It's okay. It's okay. They were really decent band back in the day. Not great. They were decent.
Yeah.
I saw them at Ozfest one year. One of the many years I went to Ozfest.
Back in the day.
Back in my
day. You know how many kids had to go to PNC or had to leave PNC to go to Bayshore?
Oh God, remember that? And people get dehydrated before the main stage even hit. It's like,
yeah.
And you know what the crazy thing is? Like, you look at like 20 years ago, Ozzy was in his mid-50s, and you're like, back then, like, oh my God, Ozzy's so old. How is he still going?
Yeah.
And now you look at him like, he's already 55. That's not too bad. Like, our mentality has changed so much in that time period.
He's like 77. How's he still touring?
Yeah. Now I don't. I think didn't he stop finally? I thought he stopped finally. He's got like a medical thing going on.
Yeah, I think it was very recent.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just still shocked he's alive.
He's got to pump a lot of drugs into him, and not the fun ones.
It's like him and Keith Richards are immortal. I swear they're vampires.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Let's get into the topic of the safeties the past 2 years there. And the question is, are the Giants safeties better or worse in 2024?
I guess we're paying the bills at the end, huh?
Yeah, we still have more to talk about. Don't you worry.
Okay. Don't you worry.
You'll notice who we have on the picture here. And it's Xavier McKinney. And he's there for a reason, guys. Because that's the big topic here. You know, it's ridiculous to think Tyler Nubin will be as good as Xavier McKinney, at least as good as Xavier McKinney was last year. That's ridiculous. But that being said, Nubin could still have a great year and not be a massive drop-off. That's the hope. Couple that with the further development of the rest of the group. Let's say Pinnock improves, Belton improves, Owens because of maybe a serviceable backup. Like I said, I'm not going to go crazy on him, but it's maybe a serviceable backup. And while McKinney's still a big loss, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk about that as a, underplayed kind of thing at that point. Like, oh, no big deal. We lost the guy who played every snap and played really well. Like, there's no way to spin that as a good thing. But I don't think it's ridiculous to think that while it's still going to be probably a drop-off this group, it's not going to be a landslide.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
yeah,
you also got McKinney. Like, yes, did a great job PFF last year, but at the same time, he had to play 100 snaps to get there. He had to do this and that. Like, that being said, like, you got Nubin. So you probably are not going to Nubin. You're probably not going to give him.
I think people who probably watch this have no clue we're doing the Seinfeld thing.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, he's probably not getting 100% of the snaps.
No, he's not going to.
Pinnock's not going to be like, and that alone probably gives Belton more playing time this year. Then some.
Yeah.
So you got more depth.
I think you'll see Mills there too. I do think that, assuming he, like I said, makes the roster, which I do expect him to do. I do think he's going to be there. And I think he's part of the equation as well, because I do think the backups we have this year are better than they were last year. Because of the addition of Mills, because he's a veteran at that point, because of the fact that Dane Belton should be a little better this year, because of the fact that Owen should be a little better this year. The backup's better. The only position that you can complain about is the McKinney to Nubin. And if Nubin balls out and we were like, oh my God, maybe he's going to be an amazing player right off the bat, you could actually make the claim this has the potential to be a better group. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Let me be very clear on that before people call me an Xavier McKinney hater or anything like that. I'm not.
Yeah,
but I do think that this is a possibility. But I think overall we'll probably be slightly worse as a group overall because of the drop off from McKinney to Nubin. And everybody else going up, him going down, But it's not going to be a weakness of the team, guys. We've already talked about what the weakness of this team is going to be probably. It's probably going to be either potentially tight end, since we're counting on a rookie and a guy who had a down year, assuming Waller does retire, and possibly, I hate to say it, corner or defensive line, because all you have is really young guys that haven't proven anything yet. It's not going to be this place. You know what Pinnock is. We talked about it. He's an average to above average starter. Not going to light it up. Not going to embarrass himself. Going to do everything average to slightly better than average. That's not horrible. Got good backups. It's all a matter of what Nubin does, and Nubin is the guy who's going to decide what this group is. It's that important as far as where he is and what's going on there. So, all right, Rob. It's your favorite time of the day.
Yes.
Now we're going to pay the bills.
Yeah. Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, guys. John Anderson, of course, in the house, reciting the lyrics to the Power of Love song there from
John Anderson Jr. I think you're just too darn loud.
Then he's giving you the quote, Doc Brown, Marty, I need 1.2 gigawatts of electricity to power my DeLorean time machine and travel back to the only power source capable of he put ... Okay. And then he's got a new quote. He goes, "The only power source capable of generating 1.2 gigawatts of electricity is a bolt of lightning." And of course,
how do you predict where a bolt of lightning is going to happen?
Luckily,
save the Giants.
Yeah. So those are audio podcast land. By the way, Rob is wearing a Back to the Future T-shirt. That's what started all this talk here. I always forget sometimes to include to them what the inside jokes are visually. Yeah. Let's get back here to some more topics here today, because we got some Giants news to go over. Oh yes, we do have some Giants news.
It's time for the news.
Oh yes. And the first bit of news we have is there was a workout today. There was a workout today. And I don't mean me, because I sure as hell didn't work out today.
5:45.
But so the Giants had a workout today with defensive back Joshua Kalu, who looks very shocked to be worked out, apparently, by that picture we're using there. And to be honest, I'm a little shocked by it myself there. He's played corner, free safety, and slot throughout his career. Undrafted out of Nebraska back in 2018, originally signed by the Tennessee Titans, who he played for up until 22. Now, he did skip 21 as a season as a whole, but we'll get to that in a minute. 44 games overall, 5 starts, all of which were in 22. That year, 16 games, 5 starts, 42 tackles, 1 interception, 5 passes deflected, and 1 tackle for loss. He was actually a Giant before. So you guys may have forgotten about him, because I'll be frank and honest with you guys, say I forgot about him. We had him back in 21. He hurt himself tearing his pectoral muscle in the very first preseason game that year. Went in the IR, didn't see the field again, and we didn't re-sign him.
Brutal.
So because it was weird, I was looking him up, and like all the stats places have him in the Giants uniform from that year still. And I'm like, Giant, whoa, dude, we worked him out. We didn't sign him yet. What's going on? But last year he split time with the practice squads of the Commanders and the Dolphins. Didn't enter a single game there at that point. So, the questions you got with this one here, the very first one I got to ask is, obviously Shane Bowen was his defensive coordinator from his time over in Tennessee. Tennessee.
Okay.
No, I'm not doing Mr. Garrison. Yeah. What was that song back in the day? There was a Tennessee song. It was a hip-hop song back when hip-hop was still good back in the early days. Back in my day.
Run DMC.
It was Arrested Development. That's it. Arrested Development. Look it up, see you did that one. Back in 1992. I'm aging myself here. It's 32 years old, that song. God damn it, I'm old. Anyway, is that a favor by Shane Bowen to him? Because he still probably wants to play, let's be honest. Most people want to continue their careers and make more money. Just saying. The other question is this a sign that maybe the Giants are a little concerned about the defensive backs? We've talked about these guys now the last couple episodes. Today talking about the safeties. Yesterday, Monday talking about the corners. A lot of really young guys. And now you get a guy that's still young coming in, but he's not ancient, and he's got a little bit of experience there at that point. He's still 28 years old. He will turn 29 though in August. It's getting up there for a backup. Let's be honest in that, guys. Backups don't have the same shelf space that a starter does. A starter will play until his early 30s, because once he gets that 29-30, they put him to a backup role at that point, and they're okay with that, because he like Jalen Mills, he becomes the mentor. He becomes the guy who can help at that point the young guys figure out where to line up and do that kind of stuff. This guy's not that. So it's a little bit of an odd move there for me. I did watch some tape specifically on him, and everything I saw, there was some really good special team plays. That's the kind of weird thing. So, maybe this is a special team move, potentially even. 6 foot even, 203 pounds. And, we'll have to see what happens with this and where this goes. If it goes nowhere, I think it's safe to say he's not in demand when he's available at the very end of May. and didn't even get it into a single game last year and spent time in 2 different practice squads, like, you could sit there and say he's not in demand. So if we don't sign him, we either weren't impressed with the workout or it 100% was a favor Shane Bowen gave him, which I have no problem if that's the case. You got him in the news, got people talking about him. Maybe somebody else looks at him as well if the Giants aren't actually interested in him. So, I always hope positive for people at that point. So maybe it helps him out. Maybe it's a favor to a friend. Nothing wrong with a favor, as long as it doesn't cost the Giants money in the cap. And this doesn't cost anything to bring him in for workouts. So, all right, next up, we got to talk about probably the most disrespected player on this New York Giants team. And that's Andrew Thomas. PFF left Andrew Thomas off their list of the top 10 tackles in the NFL. And to me, that's a goddamn slap in the face, guys. That's a goddamn slap in the face. He has been everything that you expect out of a franchise left tackle the last couple of years. Last year, he allowed just 4 sacks, 1 QB hit, committed just 2 penalties. He's been a second-team All-Pro 2 years in a row now. He finished in the top 10 pass blocking grade by PFF last year even, while dealing with injuries and bad play all across that entire rest of that offensive line, guys.
I was about to say, his poor offensive line.
Yeah, like, that's got to get him something. I'm sorry. When you play at an elite level next to shit, that's got to count for something, guys. I'm sorry. It's got to. Like, it's kind of like how, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. Let's say, like, let's use a basketball analogy. We've talked about this guy recently. AI gets a lot of credit in Philly. I know we hate Philly, but I'm just going to, it's a good example. AI gets a lot of credit in Philly because he took a team to the NBA Finals. Let's be very frank, had no right being there. Like, he was the only star. He was the only guy that was a legit scoring threat. He was the guy. He was everything of that franchise. He was the franchise in that. Thomas is the same way. Like, we had the worst offensive line in the entire NFL last year while this guy was playing on it this well. Imagine how bad that offensive line would have been without him.
Yeah. Or how much better it's going to be with him with better players.
It's just, to me, I'm tired of seeing this man get just pooped on here over and over again and not appreciate.
You watching?
He is. It's the one with, I don't know, it's 2 girls who was a cup. But it's like, I'm just tired of it. I mean, the guy's still never been a Pro Bowler. At what point do we show him the proper respect that he deserves? Because I'm telling you right now, and maybe I'm just being an optimistic, maybe I'm being a homer, maybe I don't know. I think this is the year that's going to happen because I think having Brasillo as the offensive line coach is going to help the offensive line overall. I think the new players we signed, coupled with the young players that we've had drafted the last couple of years, this line is going to be better than it's been in quite a few years as well. And I think maybe that's what's holding him back is people go, Andrew Thomas, I mean, the guy who's like the best player of the crappiest line, like maybe that's the issue. Am I crazy for thinking that, Rob?
No. I was about to say, sometimes, your great player is going to elevate everyone around you. But the fact that he only got us to elevate,
it's kind of scary. If he elevated everybody else around him on the offensive line,
and
imagine how bad they really are.
Yeah, which is terrible to say, but just think about it. Now you get some, like, I don't want to say great talent, but like you got some talent around him. How much better is this not going to be? Like, they go from like ranked 30th last year to ranked 14. Like, I don't think that's that crazy
even
of a
like
scenario.
The 20s, if you're like 22 in the 22nd in the league, that's still a huge jump. Like, you're still like, okay, great. They're
you go up 10 spots.
A slightly below average line. I would gladly take slightly below average line considering what we dealt with the last couple of years. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know why I'm crazy, but that's a whole separate issue. Like, it's just, it's insane to me that this how often this guy just gets overlooked. hopefully I'm right. And hopefully this is the year he finally gets the credit, because all pro people seem to know what he is. The Pro Bowl people forget him. PFF forgot him this year. You know, hopefully he's healthy. Teams around him is better, and he gets a little more love at that point there, because he deserves it. He really does.
100%.
All right. So Chris Sims, obviously the last name means a lot in Giants talk here, because obviously his daddy got a couple of rings, one as a starter with the Giants there. Chris Sims, who was never the good quarterback as an NFL player, was nowhere near the quarterback his dad was. And that's not a knock on him. His dad was one of the best of the 80s at that point, even though he also gets pooped on and not enough credit as well, same as Andrew Thomas. Yeah. Chris Sims, though, while he was never a good quarterback, he's been an interesting commentator. I've agreed with a lot of what he's put out there. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but there's not a single guy out there I agree with everything. I'd just be a lemming if that was the case. He does an annual list of top 40 quarterbacks in the league. And Daniel Jones, of course, makes it. I mean, I'm kind of sad if your starting quarterback doesn't make top 40. That means there's 8 backups better than our starter. 9, I should say. I haven't done that math. He ranked him 23rd on the list of top 40. 23rd. He was ranked 11th last year, just to give you a heads up. Chris Sims, if you watch him or listen to him on a regular basis, one thing I can appreciate about the way he is, and I don't want to speak for you, Rob, you can say if you agree or disagree on that one there, he doesn't go with the grain. Like, he has some off-the-wall opinions, but to me, they don't come up as off-the-wall to get ratings. He just says, screw it, I don't give a damn what everybody else thinks. You ask me my opinion, I'm going to give it to you. It may not be the popular opinion, but it's mine.
That's pretty fair to say, because, I mean, besides last year, it's not like he's ranked DJ the best. So
no, but you know what? You figure 11th last year, 11th best quarterback. You look at him in 23 and you go, okay, well, he was an average quarterback, so that puts him around 16. So you expect him to improve a little the next year after that. That's not crazy. It's really not. But yeah, this year he ranks them as 23rd. Now, the 3 seasons prior to him being ranked 11th last year, he was ranked anywhere from 21st to 26th. So it's kind of like he was like, okay, Daniel Jones fooled me the one year. I'm going to put him back where he belongs. That's what I feel like he kind of did. You know, but I mean, you could just as easily sit there and say 23 is a generous number. We talked about, like, I don't want to be the guy that just, you know, keeps pooping on Daniel Jones here. The guy works his butt off. He may not be the best quarterback, and everybody works his butt off. Like, I don't want to be like that guy, but listen, we talked about how bad he looked all last year when he did play. Like, the guy had trouble reading defenses. He looked lost at times. He had deer in the headlights looks, definitely. And I'm not just talking about his bulging eyes at the press conference. Like, it's just like, you know, nothing he did last year makes you go, maybe that was just a bad year. You go, oh my God, he reverted worse than ever at that point there mentally. So I don't think it's that crazy. I think it's pretty generous. You know?
Yeah. No, I think it's fair assessment that, especially when you go off last year's number, it's a good spot.
Yeah. All right, we got one more bit of topic here. Maybe it's me grasping at straws. I'll be the first one to say I'm going to grasp away, but I'm going to tell you they're going to be ocean-safe metallic straws. But big news out of the NFL today was there was a new extension signed by Texans wide receiver Nico Collins. 3 years, $72.5 million. That can max out at $75 million. And when I first had heard of that news, guys, the very first thing I said was, God damn. Because that's a ton of money for a guy who's had one good year. Wasn't even a full year, by the way. He missed a few games.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a year. I'm not trying to take it away from him. I'm just trying to say it's one good year. Like, you're paying the guy as if he does that every year. But the second thing goes, God damn, if he's worth that much, I'm not saying he's the same level of player, but how much is Darius Slayton worth? Like, does this like add to what, you know, he's been complaining about there? Like we've said already, he is underpaid. You and I have said that point blank multiple times. We want to extend it. We want him to be long term, New York Giant here. But it's like it adds some validity. Now, on paper, when you look at just last year, they're nowhere close. Let me be very clear on that. Last year, they are nowhere close, these guys. Darius Slayton, 17 games, 50 catches, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not a bad season, guys. Nico Collins, 15 games, 80 catches, 1,297 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's a damn good season, especially when you miss 3 games.
Yeah.
But look at their careers. Now, Nico Collins, obviously, his stats are kind of inflated for his average because he's only been 3 seasons, and he just had that one great one, his third. But
with an awesome quarterback.
Yes, but it's much more averaged out than you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
So Darius Slayton, 15 games on average, 44 catches, 665 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Nico Collins, 13 games, 50 catches, 741 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not that much better. Don't get me wrong, it's better, and he's got that one great year. But I'm sorry, he's not a $25 million receiver.
No.
If he does it again, maybe you start thinking of that. If he can stay healthy next year, maybe you start thinking that because he's had health issues. He had 13 games this season. He's only played 3 seasons, guys. We just talked about the fact he played 15 last year. So that means he's missed some games those first 2 years as well. He's more explosive than Darius Slayton as a player. I don't mean as far as speed-wise. Slayton's one of the fastest in the NFL. Just more he's the guy who's going to make those big plays for you. And he had that amazing year. But like I said, career-wise, they're not as far apart as you would think at that point there. So for Darius Slayton to not sit there and go, hey, if this guy's worth 25, I'm probably worth 15. It's not crazy.
Can't blame him.
Not. And the question comes into being, does this drive the price up? Like, is Darius Slayton now more expensive than he was 24 hours ago to extend? Does this give him more ammo to demand more money? Because I was shocked by this number, dude. I gotta say, I was shocked by that. I mean, am I crazy, or do you think that's a little high as well? I mean, $25 million for a guy that again had a great year last year.
He had one great year, like you said. He's also a solid, Robin. He's not the Batman. He
played like a Batman last year. I'll say otherwise. Last year he was the Batman. Tank Dell was the Robin.
I mean, you're not wrong for saying that, but hear me out. Texans were one of the most underrated teams. Took people almost 10 games to catch on how good they actually played because their first half of the year wasn't that good, but they were putting up numbers and just barely losing games.
We did. We talked about it.
We did, but a lot of people, underestimated how good they were. CJ Stroud is a stud in this league. And like you got a guy like Nico, like if Darius Slayton went down there, he puts up the same numbers, most likely. Tank Dell comes out like, he also wasn't healthy the whole time.
He said CJ Stroud was the best quarterback in this draft. We did. Damn straight.
But so you got a lot of talent around him. So I think he cashed in an opportunity, which I don't blame him.
No, I'm not blaming it. Let me be very clear. I'm not blaming Nico Collins for signing that contract. I'd freaking run to it if I'm him.
Yeah. He's like Charlie and Chocolate Factory.
Offered it. Especially because they already have another receiver they brought into the mix now in Stephon Diggs, who may very well take catches, yards, all that stuff away from him. You probably could have re-signed him at the end of the year cheaper than he'd be right now.
100%.
If he has a 900-yard season, let's say hypothetically next year, because let's say he misses, let's say he plays 14 games, is 900 yards at that point. He's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah.
To me, that was a mistake, but I'm just curious, like I said, what it does in the negotiations with Darius Slayton. Because I'm telling you right now, if I'm Darius Slayton, that's what I'm looking at, and I may be more willing to come back and just play this year out and get my $15 million next year if somebody wants to pay him.
You're not wrong, but also if a couple other receivers of this caliber of talent get paid $15 to $20 million, might saturate the market where it comes right back down because it gets overinflated.
It's the thing, you never know. Everything is a gamble in NFL negotiations.
Oh yeah.
All righty.
Show me the monies.
Let's see where we apparently disappointed John Anderson. He says, Drew, you're supposed to sing the Power of Love song. I wrote the part of the lyrics for you, damn it. Okay, it's up to you now, Roberto. Help Drew sing it. Roberto, hit the music. Use the lyrics. Well, we can't hit the music, John. We'll get in trouble with YouTube. And then he says, sing it. Sing it. Sing
Ooh,
it. Sing
that's
it.
the power of love.
Boom, 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 boom. That's the power of love. That's it. That's all we're
Save the watchtower. Save the watchtower. And we get demonetized.
Such a good movie. I remember I bought when it was the day from the Back to the Future 2. USA Today did a special edition, and they made the actual cover and everything just like it was the movie. I definitely bought that. I have it in the house somewhere. If I knew where the show was, try to find it and pull it out. So
I got home from work and I didn't feel like wearing a nice shirt.
Where I could have wore, I have a new Darkwing Duck shirt. I could have wore that.
Ooh,
nice. Yes.
Let's get dangerous.
Darkwing Duck. Such a good show back in the day. All right, guys, we will be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. It's only a day away. Of course, we will be talking about the one position we have left to talk about, and that's a very special unit to talk about, the special teams. Which I know. Listen, on paper, I'm going to tell you point blank. It sounds like a boring topic, but there's actually some interesting things to talk about when it comes to special teams. Much more
like the long snapper.
Well, we are going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. As John says, not bad, but that wasn't the lyrics I wrote out. Listen, we ad-libbed. It's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Plus, we start singing that.
Yeah.
YouTube's going to have a field day.
Exactly. So, but yeah, like I said, we'll be going over that for you guys there. We'll be talking about not just, I guess, you're talking about the long snapper. Yeah, we're talking about also the battles of who should be the kick returner and the punt returner. That's been a big issue. And listen, if you're a serious Giant fan, you've probably been like me and Rob arguing about the fact that Dory Jackson was returning punts.
Dory Jackson would
Richie
be back
James
anymore.
was fumbling. Eric Gray was like a bumbling buffoon back there. There's been a lot of issues to talk about with just returns. So we're going to talk about all that fun stuff here for you guys. So tune in tomorrow. As always, we are live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are on, of course, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter / X, Twitch, and of course, Rob's favorite, my LinkedIn profile. And of course, we're always available on all the audio podcast platforms there. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google, all the big ones there. If you haven't already, guys, please hit that like. Please hit that subscribe button there. If you haven't already, also, you may be wondering, wait a minute, there was an OTA yesterday. You guys didn't talk about it. That's because we put it up on YouTube yesterday, guys. So pop over to YouTube. What I'll even do is when we're done here, I'll pop that up to be the main video on the YouTube page to make it that much easier for you guys. YouTube.com/@2GiantGoofballs. And that's, of course, the number 2 Giant Goofballs at that point. So nice and simple there, guys. Try to make it easy for you, but we wanted to get that out immediately because I know everybody's always worried about what's going on in the OTAs there. So we'll be back again tomorrow night, guys. Appreciate you guys as always for watching in. We'll have a very special episode tomorrow about the special teams. We'll see you guys then, because I'm sure you'll all be there. And as always, Giant fans,
Go
G-Man! Go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to 2 Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.